Right, so Israel have just bombed Belgian property in the Gaza Strip, and when it comes hot on the heels of Belgium being one of those countries committing to continuing to fund UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, it does seem like a revenge attack by Israel on Belgium for refusing to go along with whatever Israel demands, as so many other countries do, that they're so used to other countries do. Other countries that can't fall over themselves fast enough to do anything that Israel wants. UNRWA have existed since 1949. They look after the needs of some 6 million displaced Palestinians right now across Gaza, across the West Bank, and across other nations in the Middle East as well. Yet they're facing financial ruin, along with the cost in human life that will come with that, because of accusations that are already crumbling by Israel that some of UNRWA's workers in Gaza, 4 individuals as it stands, amongst a workforce there of 15,000, that helped Hamas on the night of October 7th. That weak, evidenceless, Israel's word for it only accusation has been enough for 16 countries to shamelessly defund UNRWA entirely on their parts. Something Israel would dearly love to see, as they see UNRWA as the barrier between Palestinians staying in their lands or voluntarily leaving, unable to survive there. So this strike against Belgium by Israel, well, you might not have heard much about it because the mainstream media have completely ignored this. But that's likely because whatever level of justification you might see Israel as having, attacking foreign-owned property in the Strip, it's going to be a hard one to defend yourself against, isn't it? Right, so what's happening to Belgium then, Damo? Well, on the 1st of February, or we think on the 1st of February, it might have been the 31st of January, Israel bombed the offices of the Belgian Agency for Development Cooperation in Gaza. This was a 6-story building that stood in the Al Rimmel district of, well, frankly, what's left of Gaza City at this point of time in the north of the Gaza Strip. You might be surprised that anything, frankly, is still standing in Gaza City nearly 4 months into the genocide. But that also somewhat underlines the possible and certainly right now heavily discussed motive Israel might have had to hit this particular building now, especially when they are supposedly focused in southern Gaza in Khan Yunis and planning on moving even further south, hitting Rafah on the border with Egypt, where all displaced Palestinians have been sent to with nowhere else to go anymore. Well, the Belgian offices there housed 2 entities, the Belgian Development Agency called Enable, good name, and a non-governmental organisation called Humanitarian Inclusion. To give you an idea of what they're about, Enable's mission statement reads, Enable is the development agency of the Belgian federal government, implementing Belgium's international development policy. Under the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, we carry out public service assignments in Belgium and abroad. We provide customised expertise, including Belgian public expertise. We promote the involvement of all partners and we pursue top-level partnerships. Enable also enhances the impact of Belgium in international development by carrying out assignments for Belgian and international third-party commissioners. A bit blurby, but you get the idea. It's international development. Humanity and Inclusion was formerly known as Handicap International, and they're an aid agency working in situations of poverty and exclusion, conflict and disaster. So it's fairly obvious that here we have 2 Belgian agencies, government-linked at that, working hand-in-hand with each other to deliver aid and redevelopment to the people of the Gaza Strip. Certainly something in and of itself that Israel would have had beef with, given they are now levelling Gaza, as we know, and with Israeli government ministers openly talking about relocating people of Gaza so that they can take the land for themselves. Well, following Belgium's public support for UNRWA and their pledge to continue funding the valuable work that aid agency does, clearly working alongside the aid agencies that Belgium itself is funding in Gaza separately. So this isn't a sudden bucking of the trend here. Belgium have been working in Gaza on some humanitarian level for some time. Their 6-story offices suddenly got levelled by Israel, bombing it. It's thought on the 31st of January or maybe early on the 1st of February, since the offices were known to be standing on the 30th of January, but they definitely weren't by the 1st. Israel conveniently opting to take the building out despite knowing it was empty. So it needs saying that there have been no fatalities associated with this strike. The 74 people who apparently once worked there were quite understandably evacuated from Gaza City some time ago. But the 31st of January, incidentally, was also the same day that Benjamin Netanyahu stood up and made a speech reiterating Israel's long-held call for UNRWA to have its mandate ended. Well, with 6 million people reliant on UNRWA for support, what happens to them then? Israel don't care. And it seems that anyone that does care, well, they'll be prevented from being able to do anything about it, as seems to be the motivation in bombing this Belgian building. Belgium's reaction is one of shock and being utterly appalled, as you can imagine. Their foreign minister, Hajdalahbib, posted on Twitter that attacks on civilian infrastructure breach the principles of international humanitarian law. All parties must adhere to it. Quite right too. The Belgian Foreign Office is also looking at making Israel cough up for damages over this strike, as they absolutely should be, with the Foreign Ministry statement reading, Belgium will put the issue of compensation for the damaged infrastructure of projects financed by the EU and its member states back on the agenda of a next European consultation. Indeed, they haven't hung around demanding answers from Israel over this hit either. The following day, after news had reached them that their building had been bombed, yesterday, as that was at time of writing, the Israeli ambassador to Belgium, Idit Rosenzweig-Abu, was summoned, or convoked as it is called in diplomatic circles, regarding the destruction of the Enable office building, though thus far no news has come out of what was said in that meeting. Rosenzweig-Abu put out a tweet on the 1st of February, coincidentally though, which I sincerely hope she was asked about the following day at that meeting when she was pulled before the Foreign Office in Belgium, which read, from the UN itself, there are other agencies that can take over UNRWA's role if funds are redirected to them. The major defunding donors knew that. They knew as they are actually involved on the ground and know Gaza. There are other humanitarian solutions that are not collaborating with Hamas. I wonder if she was talking about Enable or humanity and inclusion there then. Bad timing if so. Besides, doesn't the strike on the Belgian offices just show that anyone who tries to take over the work of UNRWA just ends up with a target on them too? Or will any such replacement have to have Israel's seal of approval? That sounds more like it, doesn't it? That'd make for a very trustworthy organisation, wouldn't it? Not. The day before, on the 31st of January, Ambassador Rosenzweig-Abu even attacked the country she's ambassador to, sharing this image, saying 11 of UNRWA's top 20 donors suspended funding. 9 didn't, but which 9? And highlighted Belgium amongst them. If I was smack-talking your country that I'm a guest in, that I'm supposed to be doing a job of strengthening relations between, I'd expect to be expelled without my backside touching the floor. It may have happened by now for all we know. The Belgian Vivaldi coalition government have taken a much more Israel-critical stance, and this apparently has led to clashes with said ambassador, which have apparently left those involved shocked at times. Whatever has happened in that meeting then, I can imagine it was deeply unpleasant for the deeply unpleasant ambassador. Equally though, Israel has attacked the property of yet another sovereign state, what seems a really petulant attack, because it dares to keep funding an aid agency they don't like. Their word not good enough for Belgium, when Israel's words on anything frankly shouldn't be good enough for anybody, not without ample amounts of proof and evidence. Will Belgium drag Israel to court over this maybe? They ought to. Criminal damage. Building unoccupied. No doubt Israel will say Hamas have been using the building for a weapons cache again, or something similar, the usual excuses, but without evidence because we never see any. More likely every bit the sulky revenge attack it looks to be, in which case. This is yet one more example as to why Israel needs taking to court and needs to be held to account, the same level of accountability that every other nation on earth would be held to, and not be constantly acquiesced to, and no leader bending over for them is one worth voting for here, going into a general election. But equally, Israel's accusations against UNRWA, as their finger pointing at others so often does, is already crumbling. The number of actual cases warranting investigation having fallen from an already pathetic 12 out of 15,000 to just 4 due to, well, funnily enough, a lack of evidence. You should watch this video here to get the details of that and ask yourself, whilst you do, why on earth our leaders are so stupid as to believe any of this and cut funding on the back of it, or more to the point, why they think we're stupid enough to believe it too. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.